What was in that bed, in addition to trees and some daylilies, was a lot of perennial weeds. So we knew that if we just went in and spaded it up, that we would be fighting all summer, like weeds coming up and more weeds. And especially when Ben wasn't necessarily going to be here all summer, or as available as your staff would be, something like that. It's a student project. You have to consider that the students are going to come and have other things they need to do. So we thought if we put fabric mulch down and smother the weeds, put the food waste mulch on top of that to keep the black plastic in place, and also just for aesthetics, then we could plant into that, and that would really simplify things.
And I was skeptical, but Art was right.
So her skepticism was, what if the weeds come up between the black plastic?
And there were also daylilies that I had planted,
yes.
I think 600 daylilies like years prior, and they had, they just had some real oomph to them, as daylilies do, and I thought, no way, they're gonna push up through that. And Art was right.
Right from the beginning, we were thinking that we should get a bed and permission to take the trees out. That's what I was thinking. If we're gonna have a garden bed, it doesn't go well with crab apples.
Yeah.
Susan and I, mostly Susan, was like, well, I don't know, we'll get permission. If we had pulled out the apple trees and then put in a garden, and the garden didn't do very well, then there'd be a lot of unhappiness, like, and now we don't have the trees. So you guys don't want to do the garden again because it didn't work, but we've got an empty bed. No big apple trees that were there, crab apples. So we're like, well, let's leave the crab apples for at least a year and make sure the garden works out well. So when you grow squash and zucchini, there's a moth that lays her eggs at the very bottom, and a little caterpillar grub comes out of the egg and goes right into the stem and eats the inside of the stem. Even if you're using chemicals, it's very hard to control because it's not eating the outside where you might spray it, it's just eating on the inside. My thought was that being in the middle of campus, that it's a long way from any other squash plants, so this moth shouldn't probably find our plants because they have to fly from someplace where they grew up, right, like here. But sure enough, they found it. The only thing you can do is cover them with this kind of fabric, and that would exclude the moth from having access to the plant, but it also excludes bees and pollinators, so you can't leave it on there once they start producing. Plus you lose really one of the things we were going for, which is just the visibility.
And then we did have another pest
Yeah.
with hooves on it.
We also thought probably wouldn't be a problem in the
Wouldn't be
middle
a
of
problem
a big paving parking
with
lot and right next to a giant building.
Wall up that high, but sure enough, we had deer damage.
The presence of deer really limits what we can grow. There's not very many things deer won't eat. So if we can keep the deer out, then we can really look at a lot of different plants that we didn't have this year, or that we didn't have success with this year. There is a product you can spray on plants that's a mixture of rotten eggs and garlic.
That's what I've been trying to spray that across campus, but with the rains we had this year, it was a tall order because it washes off. You have to reapply, and it is stinky.
And that can be sprayed on things if you're not going to, on the parts of the plant you're not going to eat, but it is kind of limited. And like you can't spray it on tomato plants to keep the deer from eating because you won't want to eat the tomatoes. My hope was that the few things that we have problems with here wouldn't show up over there. And we did end up with Mexican bean beetles in the beans as well. So it's not far enough away, I guess.
Yeah.
So one of the considerations is trying to put up an unobtrusive fence, trying to guess how much fencing would we need to keep the deer out. And this really comes down to like how aggressive are the deer going to be.
Yeah, well, ultimately, we'd love students to be so intrigued by this that they start their own gardens. And that's the cheapest way to grow your own food and to eat healthy and really have control over what you're putting on your plate and your family's plate. So hopefully that inspires people to be more like Ben, who really wants to get dirty and grow their own food and learn about different types of horticulture through art and all sorts of things at Ohio University.
But overall, I think it was a big success, and we're hoping to continue this into 19, and
Yes,
we're going to have discussions whether it would be a student from Sam's class or whether arts program and my ground students, you know, combined to take care of it or what, but we're hoping to keep going with this.